If you are a neurodivergent entrepreneur or professional, whether that's ADHD, ASD, OCD, you're differently wired, or you don't even resonate with any of these labels, you just know that your brain works differently than most people, and you're feeling overwhelmed by all you have on your plate. Because even though it's very important for you to take care of your mental health, the systems you have in place for your own time management just feel completely unsustainable, then you're going to want to stay until the end of this video, because I'm going to break down the most critical step that you are going to need to take in order to resolve this. Welcome back to the Neurodivergent Superbrain series, brought to you by the 25-Hour Day. My name is Colin Response. I am an entrepreneur, an internationally award-winning performing artist. I am a global ambassador for the #1 luxury brand in the world. And most importantly, I did all of this with what most people call attention deficit disorder, an obsessive compulsive disorder. Personally, I disagreed that it was a disorder. And so I built a business that's now helped over 150 neurodiverse entrepreneurs and professionals rewire their brains for efficiency instead of feeling overwhelmed by a lack of time and energy, so that they could cut their working hours in half and add $10,000 to $20,000 a month to their income, even if they struggled with time management their entire lives. And today, I am blessed to have my guest, Valentina. Valentina is a neurodiverse professional. She works in an executive coaching company, and she is responsible for a team that generates more than $500,000 a month in revenue for the business. And she's doing this while she prepares herself to build her own business on the side. And today, I'm going to show her exactly why she's stuck, so that she can be empowered to make the decision as to whether she wants to permanently remove these barriers from her life or not. And I'm going to do it while walking backwards. So let's get this step counter going, and let's bring on our lovely guest with the freshest blowout I've ever seen in my life, Valentina.
Hello. I'm super, super excited to go through all of this with you.
Beautiful. I have your submission, and I'm going to pull it up. And the first thing we're just going to do is just have you read it aloud for the folks, okay?
Okay. So I lead a team, close full time, and I'm building a life in a new city. Sometimes it feels like I don't have time to do it all. I work 12 hours on Zoom and then have just enough time to work out, eat, and do it all over again. My time management does not feel sustainable. It's important for me to be outside and take care of my mental health as well, but I feel overwhelmed with everything on my plate.
Thanks for sharing. We have to break this down so that we can consume the information in all of its parts and actually make sense of where we actually need to start, okay? So what I've done is I've just separated these statements. I'm going to move my big head and put it over here so it's not in the way. And we can see we have the same statement here. I haven't actually changed any of the words. I just broke up the section so we can clearly actually see what's happening, what's relevant. When I look at this, the first thing that stands out to me is ambiguity.
Mm.
And so what I want to start with talking about today, as it pertains to ambiguity, is the most important part of accomplishing any objective, which is to have clarity on the objective itself. Because we can't achieve something that doesn't exist, that is nebulous, because you could possibly achieve it and just walk right past it. Imagine having a map in front of you with a destination somewhere in New York City. Somebody tells you that you need to reach the destination in New York City, but they didn't actually give you the coordinates. It's told you it's in New York City. You could pass that destination 6, 7, 10, 20 times and never actually even know that you could have stopped walking. One of the most important things we need to do is get clarity. So we lead a team at this point, not particularly relevant. This is more contextual. I lead a team. I close full time. I'm building a life in a new city. This may be relevant. Sometimes I don't feel like I have time to do it all. Yes, I work 12 hours on Zoom. I have just enough time to work out. Actually, this may still actually be relevant. My time management feels not sustainable. It's important for me to be outside and take care of my mental health. Okay. And I feel overwhelmed. So when we say I'm building a life in a new city, well, what exactly does that mean?
I'm building community and a structure in a new city.
Okay. Cool. Now, when you say community, what is community to you?
Like-minded people and friendships. So just really building friendships with like-minded people.
How do you know when you've built your community?
When I feel closeness in my friendships, safety.
This is going to be fun. So, building friendships with like-minded people, closeness and safety is this definition. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, how do you define closeness or safety?
Trust. I trust them. And yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing is just trust.
Okay. Trust. Feel like you can be safe with them. Okay. Now, let's talk about a structure. What does a structure mean?
A schedule, a routine, what my day-to-day looks like in a new city with more nature around me and also living in the heart of downtown. So it's just really about understanding what the day-to-day looks like in this new city because it will and does look different than the day-to-day in my prior in the city I was living in prior to this.
Okay, cool. So we're looking at a day-to-day routine with nature. Okay. We're looking at building friendships with like-minded people that you trust.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've actually clarified at the first level what this actually means, right? And what this actually means. Now, you've heard me mention the umbrella effect before. There's a certain umbrella of language that will exist over here, and there's a certain umbrella of language that will exist over here. Negative language and affirmative language. And why is this important? It's important for your own neurology. And for those folks who are watching this, I want to check one of our earlier videos to learn a little bit more about that, because the language that we use is reflective of the experience that we're having. That can be great, or that can be problematic, because the language we use reinforces the same information to our own neurology. So if we are experiencing things that are less than favorable to us, and we don't have language that is moving us in the direction of what it is that we want to be experiencing, then every time we experience something unfavorable, we're actually going to be reinforcing that into our own neurology. Why is this important? Well, because this impacts what you actually sense, see, and experience on an everyday basis. So now we're going to talk about sometimes it feels like I don't have time to do it all. What is it that you would like to feel like instead of feeling like you don't have time?
I have a great structure that makes me feel, or I have a great structure and I have a great, or just like I have a great schedule that allows for me to get everything done.
Great structure and great schedule that allows you to get everything done.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I was gonna add, but I'm like, I think that's pretty much exactly how I want to feel. Just a schedule that allows me to get everything done and then potentially just like have some breathing room in between or before or after as well.
Have some
Yeah.
people. Okay, cool. So when we're looking at this, what we want to be looking at is the polarity. So first thing you want to look at is like, okay, What is the opposite of feels like I don't have time to do it all? Great structure, schedule, get everything done. Some breathing room. In an ideal scenario, would you want to just have some breathing room?
No, I would want to have just, yeah, a great amount of time left over as well.
Okay. Great amount of time left over. Okay, cool. Great. So a great structure, schedule that allows me to get everything done while having a great amount of time left over. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Great. Now, I'm going to bolt this. I'm going to go over here. I work 12 hours on Zoom. And then, now this may just simply be contextual, but it also might be not contextual. So I want to actually just ask about this. In an ideal scenario, how many hours do you want to be working on Zoom?
7.
Okay. Perfect. Next, I have just enough time to work out, eat, and do it all over again. So what would be the opposite? We'll break this down. What would be the opposite of having just enough time?
I have more than enough time to work out, eat, and decide what I'm going to do with the rest of my day.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, it's just even saying that out loud, you just feel a shift.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. I have more than enough time to work out, eat, and decide what I'm going to do with the rest of my day. Next, my time management feels not sustainable. Now, what do we want to experience?
My time management feels very sustainable, extremely sustainable.
Sustainable may be the word that actually is resonant with you, and it's entirely fine if you feel like it is. What I want to share is when we think about the polarity of not sustainable, like sustainable means like it can happen and I know it's going to be okay. Whereas like the opposite of sustainable really is like there's no even need to sustain.
Right. My time management feels extremely peaceful. Like, I don't know what the word would be though. Feels just peaceful, feels aligned, or yeah. I know the feeling. It's like I can feel the feeling. uh just trying to, yeah, peaceful, aligned.
Right. Now, I want to encourage you when we look at this so we've looked at the other side of feels not sustainable to be peaceful and aligned. And I think the reason why, I'm not quite sure I can put my finger on it, is because of the language around time management. You've already subsupposed that you are needing to manage time. You don't think about your team. Do you manage your team or do you lead your team?
I lead my team.
And what is the difference of the experience for yourself and your team when you're leading your team rather than managing your team?
Managing is micromanaging. It's like breathing down their neck, and that's just not that does not cultivate an environment for them to actually grow and thrive. Versus leading is being selfless and of course giving and pouring in, but also letting go and letting them do their thing and the job that they've been hired to do. Because when I am led that way, I perform at my best. So there's a peace and there's a letting go in leading as well as serving them versus serving myself.
There's many things you said in there. And I want you to think for just a brief moment, what if time was its own organism? What if time wasn't this abstract thing? And you have to think about your relationship with breathing down time's neck and trying to tell time what to do all the time, rather than how you would approach time if you trusted time and time trusted you. And you knew that what responsibilities you were working together with time would unfold in the best possible manner for you. Like what word would you use in terms of your relationship with time rather than management?
Well, it resonated when you said like if I trusted time. But management, just my time, time trust. I mean, that doesn't that doesn't really make sense, but just yeah, I don't know what other word other than management I could use, but I know again, I know the feeling, just my the way that I use time or the way that I don't really yeah, trust is really just the main one that I can think of right now.
Perfect. This is great. This is why I'm asking you these questions,
Mhm.
because the language that we use is simply the best language that we have learned so far
Mhm.
to reflect upon our emotional experience. And when we are able to use language that is reflective of those experiences, we are able to tie our experiences to, which is emotion, essentially, to information, which creates retention in our brain, which reinforces the experiences that we have. So,
Mm.
do you think that it is a coincidence that you being able to navigate time in a way that is pleasurable and enjoyable to you, it has escaped you, but also you don't have language to describe its existence? Do you think that is a coincidence?
No.
Perfect. So I say this to say that this is not the problem, this is the solution, right?
Mhm.
The fact that right now you're like, huh, you might remember in one of the sessions I had, I was with Nicole, and I mentioned to her, like, yep, if you're out experiencing life and this thing comes up, there's no way that language is coming out of your brain. If right now in a controlled environment where we're given all the time we need and it takes 30, 60 seconds, not that it's a problem, it's just that's how long it's taking, which means when you're actually living your life, that's not the language that's coming out, right? So the beautiful part is as we establish that language, we're actually able to prepare ourselves for those environments
Right.
so that we can start to reinforce that language because now we actually have access to it. Okay. I'll give you some examples, things that come to my mind. I trust my ability to uh, have my time benefit me, or I trust time to reward me with opportunities, or whatever resonate to you. But just think for a moment and see like what comes to you when you think about that.
I like just I trust that time will benefit me. I trust that time will aid me versus hinder me. So it's like I just trust that time will benefit me.
Beautiful. That's so great. And as I'm going through this, I encourage all the folks that are watching this, comment your ideas of what these reframes could actually be. You don't have to be Valentina, but if you're thinking about that circumstance and it was you, you want to go through this process of improving the language that you're using because the language is going to impact the actual experience that you have. So trust that time will benefit me. Okay, my mental health. So this one was a little bit one that's in between because of course it's important for you to do this, but I would assume that you're mentioning it because you're not doing it to the degree in which you would like to be doing
Yes, exactly.
it.
Realized over the last weekend because I did take the time to do that. I almost like got emotional being like, whoa, this just benefited me so hugely and I have not been doing this. And so I would say, yeah, just it benefits me and I'm always outside taking care of my mental health.
Awesome. It benefits me because it benefits me. Is there like when you think about it may not be these words, say joy or XYZ thing, but like aside from the fact that it benefits you, how is it that you feel like when you're having that experience?
Calm and happy, joyful. Yeah.
You can adjust this, of course. Okay, cool. I'm notorious for spelling errors, so just get ready for that. Okay, awesome. And then I feel overwhelmed with everything on my plate. What do you want to feel?
I just And I do feel this way a lot of the time. It's almost like two things can coexist, but I would love to all the time feel so grateful with the opportunities in front of me and the people in my life along the way.
Great. So we have a place to start from here. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. We're going to move this to phase 2. Okay. I'll bring it up. Great. And now we're just going to clean this up.
12 seconds later.
Wow, this is so amazing.
Perfect. Okay. Now, before we move on to the next phase, I want you to just simply reflect on the difference in language and feeling as you read your original submission in comparison to the first stage of this process. So take a moment, just read it aloud, and then I want you to stop. Think about how you're feeling, and then we'll have you read the what we just went through, and then I want you to reflect on how you're feeling about that before we move forward. Okay?
Okay. I lead a team, close full time, and I'm building a life in a new city. Sometimes it feels like I don't have time to do it all. I work 12 hours on Zoom, and then have just enough time to work out, eat, and do it all over again. My time management feels not sustainable. It's important for me to be outside and take care of my mental health as well, but I feel overwhelmed with everything on my plate. Yeah, that's crazy. That's like it. I mean, it just feels not the greatest. It feels like a almost like a firm statement that I don't really want to, speak over my life, that I feel overwhelmed with everything on my plate. I think after going through phase 1, it no longer feels aligned, just in even just the language that I want to be using, but it does feel like I think of just the brightness of my life, and I don't feel like this paragraph, reflects that at all.
You mentioned so many important points. One, that each one of these things sound like declaration. And that is because they are declarations. I, 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 I. These are declarations. And as you say I, what's happening here is your brain is reinforcing the information that is associated with I. There are 2 words that are your brain's favorite words. You know what those 2 words are?
No.
One is Valentina. The other one is I. It's the reason why, if you're in a giant crowded room, you hear multiple conversations, you're minding your own business, but if somebody were to say, Valentina, at even just a moderate volume, immediately you would look around.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that. And the reason is because your brain has learned that that is important information.
Mm.
There are many words that were happening. So why is it that when that word came out, it's just a random sound, no offense, but it's just a random, just grilling your name. But it is just like around, like when somebody says Valentina around me, I don't spin around. It's because of the emotion and information that has been tied together, right? The emotion that's tied together with the information of Valentina based on your experiences, right?
Right.
The word I has the same impact because I is the word you use to declare, which is different than something that is a question. A question opens up possibility, whereas a declaration is a statement of reality.
Mm-hmm.
It is a reinforcement of reality versus an openness and reflection for possibility. Now, we're not even at that stage yet, but I just wanted to reflect on that thing you mentioned because it's super, super important. And the second thing you mentioned that was very important was you said, now after going through that, this no longer resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why that is so important is the reality that because you have now found more effective language, what used to feel normal and natural to you now feels like it is not resonant.
Yeah, that literally, it's like I can immediately feel that rewiring happening.
Yes. The reason why you didn't feel it before, because this was the best language you had so far. This is better than saying, oh, my life is shit and this and that. This is the best language that you knew at that point in time. And so it was the highest capacity that your brain had to imprint certain information and reinforce certain information, which is why this is the experience that is happening, right?
Right.
So now it's time to move on to the next phase, which is actually the thing I'm really excited to get to, because this is where the real magic is going to be for you specifically. Now we're going to move into what I mentioned when we first started, which is, aside from the language that needed to shift, the number one thing that I noticed was ambiguity. And you may have thought that I was like, okay, cool, I got the clarity of day-to-day routine with nature. Not even close. I was just like, all right, we get something so we can move on to the next stage.
Uh-huh.
What we want to clarify here is you want to build friendships with like-minded people you trust in your new city. And that's great. Okay. In order for us to experience or have any of these things, it must go beyond the waking up and a declaration of this ambiguous thing that we want. Sure, maybe our life will improve, but we don't have clarity on what it truly is. And here's a part that usually stumps most people. They think that because things are subjective or emotional, that they cannot be measured. This is something I run into all the time. People have no problem measuring money. They have no problem measuring like height or weight or anything that like they can see in the tangible world. They're like, yeah, it's fine, it's simple. But then they're like, I want to break through my plateau to new levels. And it's like what does that mean? What does that mean?
Absolutely.
So what I'm going to share with you right now is that you can measure the things that are in the intangible. And when you're able to do that, it is one of the most powerful things you can do, because we are emotional organisms. I'll use this simple example. You don't get to a stage where you're like, oh, the 15th time that Jason bought me flowers and my love for him increased by 32.5%. Like that's not how that works. However, you may certainly know when you love someone. You may think about your mom or your father, and it's an unquestionable thing. You're like, no, I definitely love this person. It can be very clear when it is present or it is not present, right? So when it comes to the measurement of certain things that are intangible, we want to use the reality that we can actually differentiate between the feeling state of when we have it and when we don't, as a means of measurement. And there are many ways you can do that. I will give you an example. For instance, building friendships with like-minded people I trust in my new city. So, first thing we want to know is, like, how many people would you want to feel like you have to be like, yeah, you know what? I built friendships in my community.
Yeah. I've always been like a people person, and I feel like I'm 100% extroverted, to be completely honest with you. So I used to think that I needed, or that I was close to everyone. But what I've realized lately is that I just want to build, like, in terms of like-minded people that I trust, that are my people that I see all of the time, 3.
Boom. 3. Okay. Now we have one key measurable. 3 friendships with like-minded people you trust. Now, we need to measure it. And there are many ways that you can do this, because trust is maybe something like love, for example, which is why I brought up that example. An example of a circumstance like this for you to measure something like this could be, and I'll give you maybe 2 or 3 examples. 1, I have 3 friends who I am 100% certain that if I had a major emergency in my life, that I would be able to phone them with no hesitation, right? Another example, if I was to rate their transparency on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate them at all times at least a 9 or above, right?
Yeah.
As an example. So what comes to your mind when you think about trust and what trust means to you in ways that you can measure that?
I think just that I can be 100% myself with. As you were giving those examples, I was like, just people that I can be 100% myself with. Because if I can't, or if I don't feel that I can be, then there's not that safety. There's not that comfort. There's not, if I can be myself, that means that I can call them anytime, you know, so 100% myself with.
Great. And now, the last piece of this, which is like-minded.
Yeah.
What does it mean for them to be like-minded?
Healthy habits, smart, not that like, I mean, no, it's good to be confident because I was going to say, like,
It's okay.
yeah,
You can
right.
call yourself smart. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, right. Healthy habits, smart, driven, like driven by impact and fun. Just like I love fun people. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, great. So this is an easier way to kind of give the example I wanted to give before. So when we're looking at something like this, you could have different ideals that you would enjoy in this context. And it could be that maybe you want all of your friends to exhibit at a minimum of 3 out of these 4 attributes. Maybe they don't have very healthy habits, but they're smart, they're driven, they're fun. Or
Mhm.
maybe they're healthy, they're driven, they're fun, but they're not that smart. That could be an example. Another example could be they must be all of these things, and they reflect these things at a minimum of like 80% of the time or above,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
It could also be that you have a collection of those 3 friends, and each one of those friends must inspire you to be at least one of those things, right? So when you think about this, what would be a measurable in terms of what is actually important to you? What I shared were just examples of different ways that you could look to explain what elements here are actually of significance to you and in what way.
Okay, I would say they're all I mean, I would love to just be around people that have all 4 of those and just I would say mm, what's important to me is I mean, they're all important to me, but I would say just like maybe healthy habits driven by impact and fun because I think at the end of the day like who am I to judge someone's intelligence at the end of the day, but I do think that it's just clear if people have healthy habits driven by impact, you know, like they've got a purpose for their lives and are doing things. And then fun is really important to me. I don't like I love community and I just love being able to get along with people in ways where we're laughing or just doing fun things together, etc. It's just a very important thing for me right now in my life. And so I would say they're all important. Like I
No,
don't
that's fine. They can all be important. That's not the point. It's not that you have to choose between them. What we're looking for is how we are going to measure your achievement of these attributes in those people.
hmm. Well, through time and through getting to know them and observations is how I would measure these attributes, I think.
I'll give you a few more examples. So even though you were downplaying smart, I still think it probably was pretty high up there. It was the second one you mentioned. And it's like, it's okay. You don't have to judge other people because you don't think that they're that intelligent. And you still don't have to spend all your time with them, right?
Right.
Like these 3 people in your life that are the closest to you, if you want them to be smart, by your definition, they can be, right? And there can also be some stupid people out there, and you can also still be a kind person, right? So
Mhm.
it's not about adjusting that. It is about looking at, okay, when you approach one of these people that could be a potential friend, and they're like, oh, sorry, I was stopping by McDonald's. And you're like, well, that's not very healthy. You're no longer my friend, right? Like, that's probably not going to happen.
Right,
And,
right.
or maybe it would, but I don't know. But the main point is that we want to actually look at, well, if them being healthy 100% of the time is not a make or break, like what actually is the determining factor that I'm going to be using to actually assess these elements I've mentioned are of importance to me. And this is similar to what I mentioned before, where keep in mind the fact that you're like, I'm not actually sure, or maybe I'm kind of confused at what you're asking, is not a problem. It is the solution. An example could be that a majority of their uh, recreational activities are what I would consider to be healthy, right?
Yes, yes, I see. I hear you. And I agree where it's the majority of their routine is healthy. The majority of their routine is self-development and taking care of themselves and their mind, etc. Doesn't have to be 100% 5%, but the majority of their time is spent doing that.
Okay. So keep in mind, the majority is 51%. And it's fine if that's what your standard is, but this is what I wanted to expose to you when I was looking at what I mentioned. I was like, this is the area where this muscle needs the development, is around the ambiguity of things that are in the intangible. And once we start to actually open up and solidify your ability to perceive these types of things in a way that you can measure, this is going to open up your capacity to perceive time in a different way and engage with time in a different way.
Yeah.
Healthy habits the majority of the time. So are we talking about if they had 10 recreational things that they did and 4 of them were unhealthy, but 6 of them were healthy, that you're like, yeah, that's good. And it's fine if it is. We just want to get clarity on
I would
what
feel
that
like,
actually is.
yeah, like 7 or 8 out of 10,
Okay.
you know, 7 or 8
Okay.
out of 10.
Okay. So 75%
Mhm.
of their recreational activities are things by activities. Yeah, I can't be your friend, clearly. The recreational activities are things that I would personally describe as healthy,
Mhm.
right? And that could be, like you said, mindset stuff. It could be physically healthy. It could be what they're eating. It doesn't really matter. But you see how with something like this, we still have measured.
Mhm.
Just because it's in the intangible, it doesn't mean that, and because you're feeling it doesn't mean that it can't be measured.
Right. That makes
Because,
sense.
like, does this feel resonant to you that you're like, oh, huh, like, yeah, that's what I would like there, rather than somebody whose healthy habits are 30% of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's it. It's different if it's 30 versus 75%. So I hear you.
Perfect. And so a follow-up question to that, how much more easily do you think it would be for you to be able to even just like reflect or assess on potential friends when you already know that this is what you are looking for?
So much easier versus just right that ambiguity of like, oh, well, you know, I think that this person's like-minded because of, and then not really having anything to measure that.
Precisely. We don't want to live in the land of ambiguity and like emotional reactivity. You can experience emotions and enjoy the emotions. It's not to say that everything has to be this mathematical thing. It's just the reality is that, like, if you were to spend the time with the person who was 40% of their habits were healthy, you might only find out that you don't really resonate with them maybe after 6 months or 8 months of spending time with them, because you're not thinking necessarily about that behavior. It would just be a feeling space. You would eventually get there and be like, something just feels off. Something
Right.
just feels off with this person. Whereas that could have been 2 weeks. Could have been 2 weeks, and you were like, it's not that I hate the person or anything. It's just very clear to me that this person's behaviors are just not resonant. I can invite them to do some healthy things, and maybe they want to do healthy things, or maybe you're like, you go to do healthy things and invite people to do those healthy things, and that actually clarifies to you whether or not they're falling in this category, right?
Right.
But there's so many different ways that actually being clear on what it is that you want to experience from a measurable perspective will impact your ability to have time be in collaboration with you. So let's move on to SMART. Now we're going to figure out, what does SMART mean to Valentina?
I think that it's self-aware, like just like honestly 100% self-aware. Um, and ownership is really what comes to mind.
I'm assuming like of their behavior, their actions.
Ownership of their behavior. And that's honestly pretty much it. Like when I come to just think of someone's intelligence, like I appreciate and acknowledge and think it's beautiful that someone has knowledge on, the things that they're passionate about. But I think primarily just that self-awareness and ownership.
Okay, great. Okay, so in this particular scenario, like you're sitting in a room with 3 of your friends, one of them farts, and everybody's like looking around, and nobody says that it was them, are they friends anymore with you? Because this didn't happen.
That example is a funny one, but I would say if that was like, I mean, no, like I only want to be friends with honest people that take ownership over their behavior. But I would say, I think of like, like it's okay if you don't want to out yourself, I guess. But if it was something greater, then I would hope that they would take ownership.
Okay. So as much as I'm being silly about that, I'm wanting to move you into the direction of further clarifying,
Right,
because we want to look for things that aren't necessarily in the extremes of the binaries of things that you're going to see as you scroll down, like I am always outside, I'm always feeling grateful. Well, right now you're not outside. Even if you went outside every single day for 3 hours, you wouldn't always be outside.
right.
And so it's important for us to clarify, what does it actually mean for you when you say always, so that you can measure that and you can actually create and build that experience for you.
Absolutely. I hear that. So ownership of their um
2,000 years later.
I have built close friendships with 3 people in my new city who I can be 100% myself with, who have 75% of their recreational activities as things that I would personally describe as healthy, who are honest with themselves 100% of the time, who are doing something with their life that they are passionate about, who, when faced with circumstances that they do not enjoy, will choose to intentionally be kind, optimistic, joyful, and grateful more than 50% of the time. I trust that time will benefit me more than 75% of the time because I have a great structure and schedule that allows me to have the ability to go to the lake every morning at a scheduled time each day, 7 hours on Zoom to work, 2 hours to work out and eat, 3 hours of free time to decide to do whatever I want with the rest of my day, to rest, go see a friend, watch TV, or read a book. 1 to 2 hours a day taking care of my mental health because it benefits me and brings me calmness, happiness, and joy. And each morning I wake up and I thank God for the opportunities in front of me and the people in my life along the way. I'm just smiling so hard because I started smiling right before starting to even read it because of the insane energy shift and impact that it made on me before I even started reading it.
Beautiful. It's obviously clear that we've gone through a process to actually expand your consciousness to having clarity, not just around a feeling space, but what would actually produce the feeling space.
Yes, the specificity is, I don't remember the last time I was this specific with anything and it's other than just the numbers at work, but when it comes to my life, this is so specific. It allows you to visualize it as well as it's so specific and positive and affirmative, right? Like reading the other one, I almost just whatever state I was in when writing it, I never want to be in that state again. You know what I mean? Like versus reading this, I'm like, reading this is not like, no, you're never going to have hardships in life ever again. And your state's going to be at 110%. And, but it's everything is measured. So then there's no confusion and there's 0% of an overwhelming feeling when I read it, to be completely honest. Like now I'm just excited to wake up every day and measure my life based off of these things that I have to do and based off of this clarity, because again, it can be in the midst of the ups and downs of life, but like I'm measuring my life by something and I have clarity and I'm using affirmative language. Colin, like you're unbelievable. This is really, I can see why you've just changed so many people's lives and continue to do so because this is super impactful and will continue to impact me for long past this call. It's just completely reframed every single day, waking up, implementing obviously every single step of this, and then finding that I'm more efficient on 7 hours on Zoom than I am on 12 because I've given myself the 2 hours to work out and eat, which friends, family that have come and visited me have told me I don't even have 15 minutes to eat. So I'm just so excited. And I will be sitting with the transformation that just occurred in a short amount of time because this was really impactful for me.
It's beautiful. This is what I want people to see and understand, that When most neurodiverse professionals, entrepreneurs are overwhelmed by a lack of time, a lack of energy, their solution to this is buy this productivity app. I'm going to join these generic business coaching programs. And they don't realize that doing all of these things actually makes the problem you are dealing with worse by design. And not because they're intentionally trying to like trap you in something. It's because there is a misdiagnosis of the actual problem. The problem is not a lack of information. The problem is an ability to act on what information is already there. And what ends up happening is people keep getting more information to try to solve the problem. They collect information. They go on YouTube, they get this thing, they get that thing, start going on productivity apps to try to do more of the things that are already burning them out instead of less of the things that are burning them out. And it just results in the problem getting worse, them feeling more burnt out, and they're not the problem. The problem is you have not learned how to leverage the way that the neurodiverse brain naturally works. All of the key neurological factors that are causing your analysis paralysis, that are causing your procrastination, that are causing your perfectionism, that are causing you to feel overwhelmed and pulled in so many different directions are happening because the actual root of the problem has not been addressed. So if you're watching this and you walked through this with me and Valentina and you realize, I know what I want to accomplish, but I actually don't know how to do it, that is why we created the 25-hour day. So if you're somebody who is done poking around on YouTube, trying to find the next productivity app, and you want to permanently remove these barriers from your life, then look in the description of this video and click the link. And if it is resonant with you, then you can book a call to speak to me or somebody on my team about how we can help you remove these barriers from your life permanently. Until then, I want to say thank you, Valentina, for blessing the people with your honesty, and I'll see you next time.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Colin.
You occupy